All right, and welcome to Press Turn, a video game podcast. I'm your host Sam, and it's just me and Derek today.
Hello.
And no specific discussion topic. We're just gonna talk about our weeks and the at the time of this recording, we're in the middle of the Summer Game Fest. I'll try to do something for the Nintendo Direct if possible. If it comes down to it, I guess I'll just record that myself because I'm sure Derek's gonna be busy.
And
But
happy.
um, anyway, yeah. So let's just get into it. Derek, it's been a while actually.
Yep.
So what have you been up to?
Okay, well, ironically, I beat Tales of Zillia, and this was when we did the podcast about plot twists. Had just started that game.
Hmm.
The end of that game is like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, and some of them were good, but then some of them were just like, okay, you took too many turns and you don't know how to wrap this up. The problem with having a really cool big plot twist is then the writers are like, oh, we worked ourselves into a hole and we don't know how to get there.
Hmm.
Overall, it was pretty good. It was one of the better Tales games, upper echelon, I'd say, upper half. But there's one part that really annoyed the crap out of me, and so I apologize. I'm about to spoil a 10-year-old game. I think that's okay.
It's
Okay,
fine.
so I'm not gonna get too specific, but in this game, one of the cool quote unquote ideas in this game is that if you want to do two playthroughs at the very beginning of the game, you pick whether you want to be the male protagonist or the female protagonist,
Right.
and then most of the game you're together, but there's like three different times in the game where the party splits up,
Hmm.
and you go, and every time you go with the person you picked at the beginning. So right at the beginning they're separate, and there's a few times the party separates. There's one part, like most of the time, I picked the female protagonist, and most of the time you're split like three and three because there's six people in the party. But there's one part where the female protagonist is her name. I'm tired of saying that. Mila is her name, and then Jude is the guy. Mila ends up by herself, and so I ended up on this part where like there's this big revelation, and then she is by herself, and then she kind of goes on this like existential journey and it discovers like who the real bad guy is, who it really wasn't what you thought it was. It was actually somebody you thought was an ally, and it's like, oh crap, he's the bad guy. So she's like in a shrine by herself with these spirits that are her friends, and she realizes, oh crap, he's the bad guy. The next thing that happens in the game is that you are magically transported by those spirits to fight the bad guy that you just discovered is the bad guy, and all the other five protagonists are there fighting him too, and you have no idea why they even know that he's the bad guy. And then when you're after you do that, and then you're all together, there's like a skit that's supposed to be like haha funny, and it's like you catching up with other people, and one of them's like, well, we all got a big fight with each other, and one guy tried to kill another guy, and he also shot a bullet at this other girl, and so they all get a big fight and all try to kill each other. But then they don't tell you what happened. They're just like, aha, we all tried to kill each other. And then we ended up at the bad guy and fought him. Apparently, to know what the frick happened to the other side, I have to play the whole game again, which I'm not going to do. So I think if I had done it the other way and I'd been Jude, it'd have been like, oh, hey, Mila showed up out of nowhere. But I would like know what happened. And so I feel like the game should have at least given you the option, like each time they split, to just like play both in order, because I like the idea of doing both, but I'm not playing the game twice. Just like it should make sense both times. I feel like Fire Emblem Three Houses did this, where like you pick different protagonists and you see different parts of the story, but every story feels mostly conclusive. Like there's always a little breadcrumbs that are like, hey, I should play again and do it this other way.
Yeah.
But it's never like, wait, what? It was ridiculous. Anyway, so I've started Tales of Zillia 2, which has a lot of new things that I don't like. Like the protagonist is new, which is fine, and he meets all the old protagonists. But it gives you a lot of options, like in Fire Emblem with dialogue, so he doesn't really talk much, which annoys me. But the main thing I hate with sequels is when they shove a bunch of new lore in. So there's all these new things that like don't make sense with the old lore. Final Fantasy 13 too kind of did this as well. I feel like so did Final Fantasy 10 too. If you're gonna make a sequel to a game, don't invent new lore just to keep it going. Like you can reuse the old lore in an interesting way without like retconning everything. I'm not very far into that, but that's my rants
Oh,
about Taylor.
right. What the heck?
What are you looking up?
I'm looking at the cover. That
Of Tales of Zillia 2?
Yeah. Well, of 1 and 2,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
aren't
So
the
there's
same characters at all,
no.
except for
Yeah.
like
You
one
have.
of them.
Well, I think you end up back with everybody, and then you end up like three new protagonists who are probably on the cover of Zillia too.
Yeah.
And that's fine, except I don't really like the silent protagonist thing, and a lot of the stuff they've shown with all this with the new character and his kind of the way things are playing out, it seems like kind of like time travel, and I'm freaking sick of time travel. I watched Loki this week with my arms crossed angrily. I hate time travel so much.
Uh,
It's just lazy. It's lazy writing.
Also, quick aside, there's something about the cover for Tales of Zillia 2 that feels really off from the other covers. So like what I mean is uh the Tales series has like a very specific artist that always does the covers. I forget their name, but they've always been there, and like the thing you get is always the cover with the kind of sketched like dry sketched cover of all the characters. And I'm looking at the cover of Zillia 2, and I'm just like, it feels like, it honestly is the first Tales cover that I'm looking at that just feels like this was worked on by like several, on like different artists or something like that. Like it doesn't feel cohesive.
Well, it does. The guy looks a little weird. The main guy with the looks like white that has like white and black hair, and like half
Yeah.
his face is weird. He looks a little odd, but actually, most of them do look the same. You're right. It looks like the same guy. But if you look real quick at Tales of Grace's F, that's got to be a different artist. It looks way more. It looks more like what's the guy's name? Abano that did Final Fantasy, the older Final Fantasies. It's not exactly like that, but it's more closer to that. It doesn't. It looks more like penciled, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the only one that looks different to me, really. And then, but like Symphonia, Vesperia, Abyss, Berseria, yeah, you're right. They all look kind of the same.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is weird. Huh.
So yeah, after I beat Zillia 2, Grace's F is the last one I need to play before
Hmm.
Arise comes out, and then I'll have them all beat. Um, yeah, overall, Zillia was fine. It just that one big plot point, I was just like, what is happening?
Hmm.
I'm less excited about Zillia 2, but I'm going to see it through to the end. Um, and then the other thing I played, well, two more things. I beat Super Mario World and I beat Bowser's Fury. And I
Oh.
have to say, if Bowser's Fury was maybe 50% longer, they should have sold it on its own. It's honestly probably the best 3D Mario game they've made, which I realize is very, very bold statement. Maybe not as good as Mario
Yeah.
Galaxy. Maybe not as good as Mario Galaxy. But it
But
feels like they took all the best ideas from Sunshine and from Odyssey
mhm.
and just put it and then put a cat suit on top of it. And it really just feels like no, okay, so for me, it seems like Mario split into two generations, 2D and 3D, but also split between like performance Mario, which is like the old Mario was like more skill based, and then the new ones are more like open exploration, try to do this clever thing, and like more about like the scene and kind of like the game director kind of showing off a little. Like Mario Odyssey isn't hard, but like you do a lot of things. You're like, oh, that's clever. Like, oh, that was cool that they threw that in there. That's what Mario Odyssey feels like to me.
Mm.
And Mario 64 and Sunshine feel like, oh, you're still trying to do the like hard moves, but the camera's so bad you can't. And then Galaxy and Odyssey to me feel more like, hey, let's like have this showcase for you as a player to like kind of be impressed with or look at this big spectacle, but it's never like, oh man, I can't beat this stage. Like I don't remember any time in Galaxy or Odyssey like getting frustrated that I couldn't beat something.
Mhm.
And that's all I've done in Sunshine as far as I've gotten. 3D World was more performance based. The camera is just because you can't control the camera and it's this awkward 3D. I feel like pushing the same direction does different things at different times. That was really frustrating, but it wasn't too difficult. But Bowser's Fury, I feel like it's got a great camera. I feel like they took all the best ideas. It's not difficult, but there are parts where like you're not gonna get game over or whatever. You're not, but because like even if you die in this game, you just lose 50 coins and you just go back to where you were.
Mhm.
But like there's a lot of challenges I had to do several times, but I was never frustrated. And it's It's clever. It's cute. A lot of the challenges, I was like, just kind of, I don't know. It's one of those things where you just kind of smile to yourself when you're playing a Mario game because you're like, oh, that is clever. Like, and that was a nice throwback, that kind of thing. I thought it was really good. Um, let's see. Okay, and then the last thing I played was, okay, so my daughter got some gift cards for my parents were arguing with me that they wanted to give my daughter money for good grades, and I said you're not gonna like teach her that like if she gets a bad grade she doesn't get any money and like she's a failure. So my mom gave her money anyway, but didn't tell her why. So then she's got money burning a hole in her pocket, and she wants to go buy a Switch game. And I said, well, let's look online at what's available before we just buy garbage because we have money burning a hole in our pocket. And then so I bring it up, and it was the day DC Superhero Girls came out. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I want that. And I was like, let me see if I can get a review code first. So they gave me one because actually on launch day there were no reviews of this game anywhere.
Really?
Like, yeah. So Nintendo was like, yes, sure, here.
Oh wow.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I don't know. Maybe I'm allowed to say these things. I don't know. But even now, I looked and there's only a couple. Like I think every big outlet was like, yeah, I'm not gonna bother. So mine's going up tomorrow. So I beat it and reviewed it, and so my daughter could play it. Mm-hmm. And really, it's basically like here's a kid's introduction to like Horizon Zero Dawn, Jedi Fallen Order. These kind of like I don't want to call it open world because this game isn't very open, but action adventure games, Spider-Man, that kind of thing. And you know, you level up your character's abilities. You go on side missions. You have a main story. It's action-based combat. Basically, what most games are these days. But it's kind of like, hey, here's an introduction for appropriate for little kids. Like it's rated E10 plus, but the show is rated Y7, so I let my 7-year-old play it.
Right.
And really, for the most part, I think it really does a good job with what it sets out to do. Now, the plot is very generic, and you can see everything coming from a mile away. But I mean, it's probably typical with the show. But it's pretty fleshed out. There's a lot of submissions you can do. The combat is not amazing. I mean, the last action game I played before this was Hades, which the main thing that blew me away with Hades is just anytime I pushed a button, I knew exactly what was going to happen, and it was going to go the way I want. And I had full control over my character at all times. And I'm not good at action games. So having that kind of feeling was just like, yes. This game, it had it was not buttery smooth like that. But I eventually got a feel for the timing. I could dodge. And when you dodge, you can do like a counterattack that's pretty powerful. You get to play 6 different characters, which is good. It was a little weird, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the Nintendo ads. Mm-hmm. You can play as 3 of the heroes, and then out of 6, but then you can play as 3 of the villains, which was pretty cool. Although I think I would have rather played as all 6 heroes, because they like team up to fight this other bad guy. The main complaints, so overall, I really thought it was like my daughter understood what she was doing. Now she did like skip the story all the time. She just wants to hurry to the next thing, and then she wouldn't pay attention. There's several parts which is typical in an action game, where like you have to do this thing at this right time, or you have to like pay attention to this person that's trying to help you, and she just wants to bash face. But overall, it's a really good introduction. I have 3 minor complaints so I gave it like a 7.5. All these 3 complaints could easily be fixed in an update, and I would say it's like an 8.5 after that. Mm-hmm. For its audience, I'm not saying somebody who played Horizon Zero Dawn should like go play this next as their next big action game. But you got a 7-year-old kid, and you want to like raise them towards that. It would be a good purchase if they fix these 3 things. The first 2 are just, man, it's 2021. You're trying to make a game for kids. There's no difficulty settings. There's 1 difficulty, and it wasn't too hard for me. But there's a couple of times where my daughter was like, "Dad, can you beat this? I can't do this." And so, at minimum, just make it so like you get like just raise your hit points and like raise the damage given, lower the damage taken, raise the damage given. Like that's an easy thing. I'm not saying you need to like change the like AI of the bad guys, but like no difficulty settings. That's insane. Okay, the other thing, there's 1 save slot, which is annoying because my daughter and I were both playing the campaign. So like she had to play on her Switch Lite, I played on the Switch, and we had to make sure not to like use cloud saves to overwrite each other. So like,
because you're using 1 account, right?
Yeah, because I'm not gonna pay for the game twice, and you're allowed to have the same, same account on multiple Switches, but like, let me have more than 1 save file, so I don't have to worry about overwriting things. Like, or even if a person owns 1 Switch, like more than 1 family member might want to play this game and have their own. Like that's ridiculous. Tales of Xillia let me have 50 saves on PS3. Like, how come 10 years later I can only have 1 save? But it's also to the point where after I beat it, I started a New Game Plus, or I started to. and it was like, this will erase your only save. Like, I can't even keep my like almost completed game. Like, so like if you want to do New Game Plus, you can't keep your file that you were going to maybe 100% the game with.
Hmm.
That's just stupid. Okay, then the last thing. This is a little weird. Um, the best comparison that was given to me is this is like you know how the PS4 has a thing where it'll take a picture right when you take a trophy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's never like what you want it to be.
Yeah.
It's always like a black screen, like afterwards, or it's
Okay.
like
I heard about this. There there were some people on Twitch streaming this game too, and I've been seeing some people's takes on Twitter as well. And it's just like, and I'm kind of like, what is going on with this game? Like some of the most awkward screenshots taken for you without your input,
yep.
and also just like utter savagery in the comments of those social media posts in that game, and like, what is happening? It
Oh yeah, that's a fourth thing I'll mention in a minute. But okay, so like when you complete a mission, it automatically takes a picture and it puts on a headline. It's a great concept, except most of the pictures are just blurs. Like
yeah,
it's
yeah, I
the
heard that
terrible
too.
camera angle. But three different times it basically took a picture up the skirt of my character. Which I mean, my daughter doesn't understand why that's bad, so I'm not gonna tell her. I'm just gonna let it go. But like,
It's just weird.
why? It's just and I can't imagine being a streamer and having that happen on stream.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
especially if like like parents are letting their kids watch, like, oh, it's a family game, it's a family streamer or whatever, and then that happens. That's got to be awkward. So, but all the
it caused some heart attacks with some streamers as well. They're like, ah, ah.
I'm not saying they need to like patch it and like fix the camera because I realize that'd probably be a lot of work, but they
Yeah,
could patch it and just like for each mission and each of the different characters you might beat the mission with, just make a stock like cartoon image and put that on, and then just get rid of the camera. That's all you got to do.
yeah.
Just get rid of what you have, or even just remove it entirely, like cut it out of the game, or make the whole thing optional.
I
So
I
if you want,
think it's I think it's a really interesting idea just on a technical scale. The only problem is like if you compare it to how the PS4 does it, it's not always great, like you said. Um, but at the same time, I also feel like it's kind of like something where I feel like if you just tweak it a bit, like, okay, when you take the screenshots, just in case, maybe take like 5 shots, uh, like 10 or 5 shots of the 10 frames of that moment when the camera is supposed to go off, like in between. So at least you can kind of like, okay, okay, like let's check this reel of the highlight and then see if it's like, okay, is this good? Okay, no, no, that one's good, and then you can like select it and then put that one up instead. Um,
even so, you just give me an idea. Even simpler than that. When you do it, like it takes a shot, but then in game before it goes to the headline, it kind of like rotates around the character and like shows them in their action pose, like that their freeze on that final punch or whatever.
mhm.
I assume the game knows like which area is the front of the character. So if the game just like did the action shot and the rotation and rotated to the front of the character and always took a picture of their front, or their side and not like their behind, I think it would be fine because none of the characters are really wearing. Actually, other than this, I think the game is very clean. There's no like cleavage or anything like that would make me worried. The only thing I don't like is the only boy girl relationship is one of the villains, Star Sapphire, is like obsessed with Hal Jordan, Green Lantern, and
Mhm.
is like pushes herself on him in a very like please respect yourself lady kind of way. So I that's not a great example for kids.
Mhm.
And then another thing is that there's an in-game social media thing, and then like part of some missions, like you have to like get followers and post photos and like be in
It's a
it.
mechanic,
It's like,
isn't it?
yeah, it's not necessary to play the game to like play the story, but like several
Okay.
missions you have to like get your influencer status up to do the missions. And what really I was just ignoring it, but there was one part where I was farther in the quest than Ellie, my daughter. I'd gotten a new character, and she was annoyed. And then she goes, "Oh yeah, well, how many followers do you have?" And I was like, "I never want to hear you say that again." Like, I don't need my 7-year-old worried about how many followers she has.
Yeah. Uh, Hang on one second, because I wanted to. I should have looked this up. while you were talking, but um,
Well,
oh,
I
sorry,
do
go
think
ahead.
I do think the game has a really good base, and I think if you just patch it real quick, mostly it's a really good introduction. And honestly, if my daughter, she's not quite beat it yet, but she beats it, and they put out DLC where you can play as the other characters, I would buy it. I think that she would enjoy it.
Hmm.
So like I don't know how the sales are in the game, but like it just needs a little more polish. Not like it's not like one of those games that was shipped broken, but it just has like a few minor things that you could easily fix or just like make not quite what you wanted, but better than what you have.
Yeah. This did come out on. This had like several ports too, didn't it?
I think it's new and it's Switch exclusive. I don't think it's. I mean,
Oh, okay.
there might be other superhero girl games. Ugh. But the one that has the subtitle Teen Power, this one I think is I think it's a brand new game and it's only on Switch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just found it. All right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's one of those things like you're like, especially when it comes to video games, and especially when you're a parent who loves video games, aware of you're aware of what you did as a kid, and maybe you did things that are kind of like they were of your own volition, but maybe you shouldn't have played them at the age that you did. It's like I've heard a few stories of people playing things like Metal Gear Solid is an example. Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2, you know, like Silent Hill 1 and 2 of all things is like one of the crazier ones because those games actually actually have messages about like psychological and mental health related to them. And has some really dark thematic tones to them as well. That it's just like man, like man, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if everyone who played that game at that age when those games came out all that well in consideration. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's one of those things where the problem is the gaming market is clearly favors a certain audience, and while technically it's pretty wide the age range, it also limits like the lower range that might actually be interested in that, and you really only see like AAA games of like licenses and then some like bargain bin shovelware basically that just gets shoved out because the studio needs to make a game just to stay in business or something, and it's just kind of like some boring dime a dozen type of game or whatever.
My daughter asked me like, "Dad, why don't you let me play the PS5?" And I'm like, "Because there's nothing good for you to play on here that's like rated, E10 plus or below, or rated E. Like, Nintendo is the only person or only publisher or I guess manufacturer of consoles that's actually putting out quality kids games.
Mm-hmm.
And so uh, I've looked. I mean, there's a few games on PS5 or Xbox that I might let her play, but like she's put so many hours to her Switch Lite, and like stuff like Animal Crossing or Mario or any of that stuff. There's just no comparison on other consoles. Another
Uh,
ask. Go ahead.
um, there were people talking about it in our writers chat. Wholesome Direct, which are a bunch of indie games. So I'm not sure how many of those are going to be on Switch. It might mostly be PC and some consoles. Uh,
Yeah, has that happened this week yet? The
yeah,
direct.
I think that already went through actually. So
I'll have to take a look, but I mean, like I'm happy to look at some indies, but I also just have an aversion to indies because I've been burned too many times. But
yeah.
certainly in terms of AAA kids games, there are. I mean, it's all Nintendo.
Oh no, yeah, definitely. Um,
One other thing I'll say about this game that I thought is good is I like the fact that we're headed toward. I think we still have a long way to go in terms of non-white um, protagonists, but in terms of female protagonists, I think we're making progress. Like for me to be able to teach her this game, and then when she's a bit older, let her play Horizon Zero Dawn. Like we're seeing more and more games with really strong female protagonists that aren't like bound by falling in love with a man or getting help from a man or whatever. Like I've got two daughters, so I'm very much looking for these girl power games because I mean I play games as a female often just to get some empathy with this, but I've never been like, wow, all these games I have to play as the opposite gender, which is basically like every girl's experience playing video games. So it's nice to see a change there.
Yeah. I won't go too long into it, but I do think it's very interesting when sometimes it's sort of like games that give you that gender option, especially with Western games. It's always interesting how some studios decide to give a little bit of a different context depending on what gender you play. And then the games where it's like I think more for the sake of efficiency, they just let you choose a gender, but pretty much everything stays the same. But like if you read the context into how those characters depending on what gender they are, when they say those lines, it's interesting to think of that character as one gender or the other, and then or in between too, and just being like, huh, so it's almost like the lack of context when it comes to some of those games. Like I would say, what's like a good example? Like, for Fallout 3, the context doesn't. Oh no, wait, no. There are some perks that are gender specific, so that's not exactly.
I can give you an example.
Okay.
So, well, I guess you'll tell me if this is what you're thinking. The problem I have with like the gender choice is that usually that means you're straddling the stories some and like not giving the protagonist the full personality they could have because you're trying to do too many things at once. And to me, the example of this is the last few Fire Emblem games that have let you pick your gender, and then the character maybe like you pick what they say or whatever. But like Fire Emblem Three Houses is a good game, but Byleth doesn't really have a personality or like a deep story. And I remember seeing a Kotaku article complaining, somebody that was pro LGBTQ. So when you and I did this review for the content guide, I played as female Byleth and I married Edelgard. So I did a female marriage, and she says something like, I never thought anybody would like feel this way, or she says something that I can't remember exactly how it's phrased, but she says something that seems to imply in a female relationship, like I didn't think this was okay, and I'm so happy it's okay with you or whatever. And this is a Christian podcast. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just going to point out what, from their perspective, why they were upset with this, because in the male-female relationship, if you're male Byleth and you marry Edelgard, she says this exact same thing. And so the writer's trying to straddle too many things here. Well, then the LGBTQ player on this Kotaku article got angry and said, this is a total juke because it's like, you did this thing that seems pro LGBTQ, but you really were just being lazy, and it doesn't really mean it's not as meaningful because she says it to both. And I'm not saying they're right in that, but something that is true about that game is there's like 7 or 8 female choices, and there's like 2 male choices, and they're not very. I mean, it's like go spend your days with the old man, but not actually get married. Like, it's really weird.
Yeah.
So they're. I mean, you can tell it's written by a bunch of men who.
And the other option is like a very clearly a very specific personality. I guess will be the safest way I can put that. And then meanwhile, like, you think for a male selection, out of all of them, what's his face? Oh no,
Claude.
Claude. Why is he not an option? Like, and it's like, if you want to talk about like efficiently doing that. Like Claude is also of a different race, and him being him being uh, like an LGBT friendly character selection would have been great. And like, to be perfectly honest, he kind of exudes that energy where it's like he's not, and it, like I think in the context of the story as well, it plays really good to his character because he's the type of character where it's like he wants to get the perspective of different cultures and different people and sort of like build and help it build on this idea of that he has of like uniting all the nations to collaborate and work together towards peace. And it's like I think like him being a romantic option for male Byleth would be a great addition to that theme as well.
So to circle back, we're getting way off into the maybe that was
Yeah,
too good of an example. But my main point is that when you make a character, when you give character creators, or like you make the character as generic as possible, it seems like it comes at a price story wise. And here it was more like they got in trouble by not like making it as equal as they could have made it. But I just feel like you go to like you play a Final Fantasy game, and people like have strong attachment to like Final Fantasy 7 because like Cloud and Cloud's story is like intense,
mm-hmm.
or Final Fantasy 10 because they like what happened to Titus. Even though you can name Titus, which is really weird because then it's just like you. But then you go to like Dragon Quest. Nobody gives a crap about what happens to the main character in Dragon Quest because he doesn't talk. Like you might feel like you might feel more internal, like I get to marry so and so, like in Dragon Quest 5, and you can marry the person.
Sorry, just real quick, my friend who is currently going through Dragon Quest would probably disagree with you strongly, but
well, that's great for him.
we
But I don't.
we can't get into it right now.
I don't
also
care what
I
happens.
don't play it, so
Like in Dragon Quest 11, I cared what happened to the other characters. I didn't really care what the hero's story would be a lot more interesting if he could talk. Let me put it that way.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so what game were we talking about at the beginning of this?
We were talking about DC power, superhero power, girl
so
power,
I would
team power.
Yeah, team power. Yeah, I would rather see more dedicated female protagonists like Aloy or like, Batgirl than man. If they made like instead for like Insomniac made Spider-Man, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Like if they made like a Batgirl game, or more realistically, they would probably make a Catwoman game and have it be more. Like,
I mean,
like an adult serious game.
If they could,
but,
if they can get it, I feel like a Spider-Gwen game would go really well over.
Oh yeah, that would be popular.
Even if it is a white female character, but even then it's like that's like the next best Spider-Man character if they want to continue that trend of like making Spider-Man games but with different Spider-Men.
That would be cool. Or women. Spider-Women.
Spider-Woman. I only know the one, so I don't.
Speaking of Marvel, you want to switch over? Well, no, we don't want to switch over to the news. What have you been playing?
Okay, so since talking with LJ, I was kind of like, by the way, if you want to go watch that, check out Press Turn Podcast, like, favorite, and subscribe. So I picked up Guilty Gear Strive, and as I mentioned with LJ before, I was still like pretty excited, but kind of like cautious about how it would turn out, just because like people kind of seem divided about how the gameplay is in that game. And then I booted it up 2 days ago. I meant to play it yesterday, but got distracted with other stuff. And me and my friend played like 2 hours of it straight, just like trying to get back into the game and stuff like that. And it was great. Like, would I say it's newcomer friendly? I suppose so. It doesn't feel as intimidating, because like when it comes to combos in that game, at the skill level that my friend and I were at, it never felt like it never felt like we were struggling to like figure stuff out or trying to like capitalize on like extra combo damage or anything. Like I would say the average hit of our normal combos would be like maybe 3 to 5 hits. Maybe if we were lucky, 7 or 8 if we just managed to figure out like which normals connected to which. And then maybe if we get a Roman cancel in there, you don't know. Not important. The most important thing is that like the game's presentation is great. Obviously, the gameplay it may not be what people who've played the previous games wanted, but I feel like with the way the gameplay feels, uh, it's very easy for someone to at least like jump into Guilty Gear Strive just to try it out and go like, okay, I'll just hit some buttons and we'll just see where it goes. And at the very least, it's like it's a lot less intimidating to at least try it compared to Exart and Rev 2. Um, the online's good. I mean, like, good, good. um, I mean, like, my friend lives in Ohio, and I'm in San Diego. But even then, it's like connection was really solid. Frame delay was like 1 to 2 frames. There were some matches we were getting where it was like uh, maybe we hit over 100 milliseconds, uh, like once or twice per match. But other than that, it's just like it's a great time. It's really fun. Characters feel awesome. I think I feel like counter hits happen a little too often. And when I say that, I mean it's like when a counter hit occurs in Strive, um, like the announcer goes counter, and like big bold letters counter flash on the screen. The problem is like we be getting counter hits like sometimes like 7 times in a row or something like that. It would get really silly. But I think it's mostly just because we kept just trying to do stuff when we should have been blocking. Uh, that would probably die down the more we play. But other than that, yeah, like really good time. Um, we'll have to see where meta goes. I guess with more professional gameplay. But other than that, that's all I can say about that.
Here's my question about Strive.
Yes.
You had said back when it was in beta, there was a feature where if you finish a match, you could rewind back to any point in the match and play the rest of it out differently. Is that still in there?
Oh no no no. That was a training mode feature. And basically what it was is
Oh,
like
okay.
if you saved a replay of your match, uh, you could watch that match, but then if you in the pause menu there was an option to rewind, and then you could input into any point of that rewind and be like, okay, so that move didn't work. What could I have done differently? And that was basically like live editing with your replay matches in training mode, which is extremely insane and such a great tool to have. I think they tried getting it to work for Strive. I don't know if it's actually in the game or not. I'll have to go back into training mode and just check. But
So you can only do it against the AI.
uh, it's I think the way it works is like um for the whole match footage, it plays whatever that footage was, and then once you start messing with it, it will then insert like a training dummy AI
Oh,
instead,
I see. If
which you can then tell to do like, okay, I'm gonna take over real quick and then make the dummy do like jumping punch or jumping kick or jumping heavy slash or whatever.
So this almost seems like it would be easier because you don't have to worry about the AI. But if you could play a two-player match watch the replay, pause it, and then you guys could start again from that spot. I feel like that would just redefine like how people practice for like Evo and like fighting tournaments.
Well, that's
Being able
basically
to
what it is. But the thing is, like, uh, I think if we're talking about it like on the more competitive level, um, I think it would definitely be interesting if the tournaments were taken online. We'll have to see how that goes once a more official tournament has gone through, and see if any of the players would willingly check that out. Um, if that feature's in there. Again, I'm not sure if it actually is there or not. I do know they were working on trying to get that in.
Now, to Strive or other recent fighting games, obviously we have like these organized tournaments where before COVID people would come together and play and physically in person and all that. Does the online match play, is it just ranked, or do they have like in-app tournaments where like whoever publishes Strive like sets up a tournament, you sign up, and then it's like single elimination or whatever, like
Um,
starts it.
so I don't believe there's a tournament mode in it yet, which is unfortunate. I do think it would be good if they could add that in, because right now it's really just like the tower room match mode and the players room match mode, and the tower room is kind of like a ranked, but it's different. It's not really based on like your personal score and like how well you've been doing with matches. I think it kind of like evens it out and sort of like just evaluates how you did in the tower, and evaluates like, okay, you're kind of like ranking within like this percentage of people who are winning like this percentage of their matches and stuff like that. So it's difficult to say. I do know for a fact that up to a certain point you're pretty much free to go into any floor if you want to. But if you lose enough matches, you'll get kicked down to a lower floor, and then you can't advance back up until like you've won more matches again, which I think is good. And if I remember correctly, I think it prevents you from going down as well once it kicks you down to a certain floor. So you can't smurf or fish for easy wins or anything like that either. Which hopefully that will address some of those hedge cases with like people who rage quit or like pull the plug on the router and stuff like that.
Original sin right there. People are the worst.
Oh, it's bad. It's worse when the games don't have any good countermeasures for that too. I don't know if they have anything like that in place. Unfortunately, we'll have to see. I will say like probably the biggest thing that will throw a lot of people off is how fast some of these matches can go, because uh, characters do like big damage in this game. It's crazy. Like it doesn't feel like a lot of the other anime fighters where they're uh, anime fighting games tend to have a notoriety um, for requiring more combo intensive play, like not just ground combos but air combos and stuff like that too. Which I do think was a problem, especially since anime fighters are also notorious for having a bunch of complicated mechanics in them. So I think it's interesting how Strive is literally just like, let's kind of like let's kind of like rip everything out, but keep in the things that are very centric to Guilty Gear, like the characters, the music, the aesthetic, Roman cancels obviously, and the character specific mechanics and stuff like that. But let's play around with like the core mechanics, like or the core basic mechanics like normals and special moves and stuff like that too. Um, It's definitely interesting. I'm interested to see how it'll shape up as time goes on. I would say it's still too early to make any final judgments right now. With fighting games, it usually takes at least a few months to formulate better first impressions. Um, but yeah, other than that, let's see what else. I'm trying to think. Uh, I did pick up Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne HD for the Switch. Uh, and I talked about it a little bit with LG as well, but something I could talk more about with you specifically is like uh, there's a certain problem I have with some of the script changes that they did with Nocturne HD. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like uh, it's not really all that important. It's just that like the nuance of the writing is what really sold me on the game the first time I went through it. So for an example, um, at the start of the game, when you're finally given control, you're walking around like you're basically the tutorial dungeon, and you find a pixie uh, in an area, and you talk to her, and then she's saying like, "Oh hey, you're trying to get out? Yeah, me too. I guess you need this key card thing, I guess. And but like I'm all by myself, and I kind of need more help. You look kind of weak, but I'll still ask you anyway. You want to go with me?" And it's like, yeah, sure, why not? Uh, or rather, it's like a yes or no thing, but it's basically like a you must. Um, and it's like cool. Pixie, like in that short interaction, she's kind of like you think she's gonna be like cutesy all the time, but she's got a little spunk to her, and she insults you like right off the bat before then just saying like, yeah, you look kind of weak, but yeah, why not? I guess I'll take my chances with you anyway. It's pretty funny. Just as like an introduction to like, yeah, like don't expect this game to kind of like be polite to you. There are going to be people who talk a bit more roughly with you because that's the setting of the world itself. And then later on, once you get out, um, and you take this pixie where she wanted to go, you get there, and in the original, she poses this question like, "Oh well, we're at the place that I asked you to take me to, so I guess this is where we part ways." And the selection you're given is "I hope not" and "Good riddance." Uh, in Nocturne HD, it's just the prompt is yes or no, and that's where my heart sank a little bit, and then I started to go, "Oh no, I'm really concerned now what they did with the rest of the script now, because it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it is basically a yes or no question, but it's one of those things where it's like that, like it's dialogue still, you know, like this is where you can have fun with the text, because like uh, otherwise, aside from like cutscenes and whatnot, which have their own voice dialogue, like these are the moments that you can really take advantage of the text and really sell, like, you know, like maybe you want to give your player character a little bit more attitude than what you were probably expecting, and for the player to like kind of like develop this connection with what they how they decide to answer, um, and like, you know, even though it's even though it's sort of just like, um, yes and no leads to different things. Yes being like you get to keep essentially a party member who at this point would probably be a lot stronger than some of the demons you've recruited up to this point. If you say no, you get this you get access to like somewhat an early to mid game equipment item that has that has a pretty good um, that has a pretty good skill set that you can eventually learn skills from for your player character. Now those are like the straight benefits, but I like that those choices at least give like just this little bit of flavor to it, where it's just like, you know, uh, where it's like it's finally just like the pixie going like, do you want me to continue to go with you or not? And then the options are in the original are like, I need you, and no is like, nah or whatever. And I like that. That's like one of the things that really sold me on the game as well. So yeah, it's a problem for me anyways. I still need to go through it a little bit more for the article I'm gonna write for it as well. So we'll see. Uh, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, it is hard for me to understand when, like, okay, and a remaster is a good time to like update the script, but it seems to me anytime you like remove the spices from the script and make it more bland, like I don't understand why you go that way. I could see like, hey, this was kind of boring in 1991 because we didn't have enough. No, not in this case. I'm actually thinking about Final Fantasy IV.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't have enough text, so maybe you write something more complicated when you rewrite the game because like technology has changed and you can write something more eloquent. But going backwards and making it simpler, I don't understand what the logic is for that. I'm thinking about Final Fantasy IV because when you said like they shouldn't have changed something in that game to like calls use Spoony Bard to Edward instead of like I think in Japanese it's more like USOB, but it was Nintendo and it was the 90s,
Yeah.
so it says use Spoony Bard, but every update of that game, every remake or retranslation or port, they've kept that because like it's the flavor, right? It's what people remember about the game. So taking interesting text and like taking even like I need you and nah down to yes or no, like why I don't understand the logic in making something simpler, especially a game like that. If you're trying to make it more accessible to like a wider audience, but it's or younger kids or something, but it's an M-rated game, right? Like you want it. I mean, in an RPG, the appeal is the story, and a big most of that's the dialogue. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes
Well,
no sense to me.
yeah, like that's kind of what kills me about that decision, because it's sort of like, because it's also like they decided to add voice acting as well, and it also means they had to change some lines um, for those characters too, and that's I'm somewhat conflicted about that, because it's like I don't want to disparage like the performance of the voice actors. Like I know like things are tough right now too, so I don't want to like fully criticize it as if it's like I think they did a bad job. I'm more just like I want to just like specifically criticize the work itself. Um, but like it's a subjective thing, you know. But things like this where it's like, like why remove it and just make it yes or no? Like it's such a weird thing, it like it like it's like the Mass Effect thing, or like with any of David Cage's Quantic Dream games, where like dialogue options or morality choices aren't exactly what you expect them to be, because the context of the text doesn't reflect the action that they took as well. Um, so and that doesn't necessarily apply to Nocturne HD, but it's kind of the same thing. Like it's really important that you make it clear what these dialogue options are. Otherwise, it's like uh like it goes both ways. Like it's all about like selling the experience to the player. um but yeah, we'll see. Obviously, the Switch version has its own issues with performance. Every time I cast Garu, which is the wind spell, the game just dies and goes below, like, I think even 10 frames per second. It's really bad. Uh, yeah, I don't know what happened. I'm not sure if it's entirely emulation. It could be, but I don't know. Like there are some things where it's like some of them are things that I know were consistent with the PS2 release, but then there are other things where it's like why does casting Garu cause the game to die visually? Where it's like, oh no, it's like chugging all of a sudden. It's weird because I think for the PC and the console versions it runs fine. The frame rate stays relatively consistent and everything too. And I know that Atlas can do a good job because even though it's a different studio within the company, Persona 5 Strikers uh, performs pretty well on the Switch. That to the point it's kind of crazy that a game like Persona 5 Strikers performs so well on the Switch. Um, so yeah, I don't know. A, a lot of conflicted feelings because um, this is like one of my uh, most favorite JRPGs of all time. Uh, but also I feel like there's a chance it may have been done a disservice, at least with the Switch version. Like technically,
Honestly,
anyways.
LJ just reviewed. What was it? It was I think it was the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, but he did it on Switch,
Yeah,
and he said it also ran terribly. And I think the Switch is biting off more than they can chew. People, I don't know if people can't program it well. I mean, it's getting all these ports from like it really is benefiting from like it's getting mobile ports, but it's also getting like everything else on PS4 and Xbox One. But I read rumors about. We'll see on Tuesday whether or not they actually announce a Switch Pro, but they're completely just total rumor mill rumors that I saw were like not that impressive for Switch Pro. Like it was talking about like it'll go to 1440p, like nowhere near 4K. But the main thing was that it was going to have a bigger processor, and I think that's the problem. I mean, most people don't complain about like the Switch not doing 4K. Nobody expects that. If people complain about the Switch, it's like it's lag, it's slowdown.
yeah. And like okay, like I'm not that big on visual fidelity. Derek, obviously you know this.
I'm
Given
not
that I
either.
cover indie games and stuff like that for the most part, but even then, it's like it's still important to think about like how the game performs technically. Because it's like now, like right now, we're at a stage where it's like you know playing Genshin Impact on your phone is actually doable to a certain extent, and with some caveats. But uh, having played it myself, that port is honestly like pretty good. Honestly, surprising. The fact that on my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, I can get a consistent 30 frames per second with that game is crazy to me. Uh, so now it's uh, like we're starting to get to a point where uh, Nintendo Nintendo really needs to step up their game uh, with their game releases. If not their console releases, whether or not a Nintendo Switch Pro is announced on Tuesday. Because because it's really suffering from the shovelware problem that Steam has for a long time now. And not only that, like, you know, you don't want to see like legacy games like, you know, like the Ninja Gaiden Master Collection just get shoved onto the Switch just because, well, the Switch is a thing and it makes money, so yeah, just put it out there. Like it's one of those things that like that we're kind of taking for granted because the PS Vita um, didn't succeed, man, man, did people try to make sure that games run really well on that thing as well. Like I mean I know it didn't perform well, but the fact that Borderlands 2 could run on that thing is pretty crazy to me already. Um,
Thinking about fidelity, I think it's like I don't necessarily need a game to like look amazing, but it what I need is not to break its look, not to break the immersion. That's the thing that lag to me, like when a game slows down and like stutters, it feels like reading a typo in a fantasy novel. It's like all of a sudden you're out of the space you're in, like you're immersed, you're in a thing, and all of a sudden it's like, no, this is real life again.
mhm.
So it's not that it has to look amazing, but once the game sucks you in, like that moment of lag just like takes you out of like that uh, mind state where you're like in the world of the game.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I'm trying to think what else I did. I feel like there was something else. Hang on, let me check real quick. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Nah, I think that's all I played this week.
Okay. Let me just check real quick. I mean, I guess I could talk about some interesting podcast episodes I've been listening to with guest appearances from like the head from like the heads of for games Umurangi Generation and another one with the dev of Adios. But
We're in the middle of Game Fest, and you want to talk about what?
well, they're interesting people. Anyway, that that could be for another time. Maybe I'll just do one off where I talk about that. So the last thing before we get to Summer Game Fest, I played Fantasy Star Online 2, New Genesis. Completely slipped my mind. I forgot that was coming out this week, and so I quickly uh, downloaded it like a few days ago, and pretty much had to wait. Um, okay, first of all, there are problems with the game currently. Of course, unfortunately, there's always a problem when it comes to Fantasy Star Online 2. Can't it can't seem to escape from the curse of having a pretty bad launch. Currently, there's a persisting lag issue. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It seems to be on the game's server side at the very least because everyone seems to be suffering from it. It depends on what instance you're in, but unfortunately, there's not really a good way to change what instance you're in manually aside from fast traveling. Uh, to be perfectly honest, the game kind of feels sparse for content right now. I took a look at their roadmap um, that they released yesterday, I think, and uh, it's kind of rough, honestly. Like in August, that's when we're getting a new mission mode, which is kind of yikes. The next month after that, they're adding one class. The month after that is another class, which, and then it's only until winter where we're finally getting a new region, which is kind of problematic because the region that we have right now, while it's it's fairly big, I wouldn't say it's big enough for an MMO, for a launch MMO. It's kind of problematic. And honestly, my overall impression of it is like this kind of just feels like a beta launch to me. Uh, and that's problematic. And it it really makes me feel frustrated because I want the game to succeed, but it doesn't feel like what like I'm not sure what it is. Maybe the team doesn't have enough people on staff, or their budget isn't necessarily very high. Uh, but if it feels like PSO2 constantly gets shafted, and the people who are fans of the game who still support it, because they want it to succeed, are almost constantly just like not really given much else for their not like they're not really given a lot for the amount of support that they've given. Um, and unfortunately, that premium feature is still in the game too, and it's not even complete yet either. There's a lot of problems with that game right now. Again, feels frustrating, but at the same time, I feel like the game the game plays a lot better right now too. The fact that they were able to basically overhaul the old this like decade old engine to look this good for new Genesis is pretty amazing. Um, it's kind of crazy, really. Uh, like I want that game to succeed, but then you look at the support that it gets, and you're just kind of felt like it's all taken for granted. Like I'm not sure what else I can really say. I can really only hope that um, these new updates can bring some like big enough changes that they feel like spacing them out month to month like this is enough to justify it. And also the technical fixes with the server, if they can get on that as well, because it's still not exactly perfect yet. They said they're still working on getting that to work for the rest of the servers, but yeah, it's not looking great, unfortunately.
Not to sound like an old curmudgeon, but this is why, for most part, my gaming is I want to play a game that I buy it, I play it, it's done. I don't want to worry about server updates and patches and like I just want to play my game. Like the idea of a service game is just anathema to me.
Yeah, for sure. And
And you
it
sounded so happy last time you talked about this game, and now you sound so sad.
what, PSO2?
Yeah, I mean it was a long time ago, but you were like, "This
Yeah,
game's underrated." Blah
I
blah.
mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things, right? And New Genesis, it's in the title, New Genesis. Like you're expecting like a new everything, right? New beginning and all that. And it's just kind of like it doesn't even feel like more of the same. It's like even less than that as well, which really
Rough.
sucks. So, but yeah, I mean like it's not entirely all bad. Like like I said, I think the core gameplay they did manage to actually improve that a little bit. It's fairly interesting. It kind of seems to take bits and pieces from like uh Breath of the Wild and Genshin in a way. And even more interestingly, it kind of took the concept of I guess like of power levels from like Destiny, Guild Wars 2, and Final Fantasy 14, which I guess would be the closest comparison. Which is basically like all your equipment and weapons basically add up to this one number that pretty much says like, okay, your your number, your player character's number is like 1,000, but to run this dungeon you need 1,100. So you gotta upgrade your equipment and everything like that to get up to that, to get up to 1,100 before you can run the dungeon and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. I think it could do well if there were more missions to run, which unfortunately there are not, and that's part of the problem. So, uh, but yeah, enough about that. Let's get excited for some new stuff.
Let's talk about Square Enix because
Let's
that's the.
let's get hype about product, about new product to get excited for when it comes out, and then get it, and then get excited again for new product, and the cycle.
While we're disappointed in the product we have, this is basically Kickstarter. I think video games were Kickstarter before Kickstarter existed. Just pre-order, be disappointed, pre-order some more.
Yeah, well, aside from the fact that this is a fairly interesting situation, given the pandemic and everything. This is honestly at this point, this is kind of par for the course, as it's been for the last few years. So it doesn't really feel all that new. I guess it was just like all the studios have finally decided, okay, I guess we do kind of have to embrace this now. So yeah, quite a quite a bit to get through. So we're just gonna go through this super quick. So at the time of recording, today is the 13th of June. So a few days ago, there was the Summer Game Fest with Jeff Keighley, um, who's pretty much the only person who could really put something like this together. Whether you like him or hate him, uh, he can do this, and I guess we should be thankful that he did. And just to get into it real quick, Hideo Kojima, or rather, Kojima Studios announcing the director's cut of Death Stranding with a somewhat dragged for too long trailer of teasing kind of like a throwback to Metal Gear Solid, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of weird. Um, pardon the language, but the trailer kind of just let out a fart that whispered Metal Gear Solid cameo, and then just dropped the title Death Stranding Director's Cut, and that was it. And I was just like, okay, I guess. I don't know. Um, Jeff Goldblum came out and announced Jurassic World Evolution 2. Moving on. Let's see what else. Overwatch 2. Some new updates for Fall Guys.
The big thing from that day was Elden Ring, right? Finally got a trailer.
I was gonna get to that.
Oh, sorry, I was skipping the boring small stuff.
hey, I might play Mill Slug Tactics. I might sell out long enough to be excited for that. Well, okay. I guess what's kind of interesting is Gearbox announcing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which I guess is essentially going to be Borderlands, but in a different setting. I guess you could kind of just call this another Borderlands spin-off game, um, where instead of like the dystopian sci-fi setting that Borderlands is, Wonderlands is going to be, I guess, like a dystopian fantasy setting, um, which could be interesting. For me, it's just going to be like, I wonder what the skills are going to be and how that'll play in and stuff like that. Not super important. Elden Ring. It exists, and the trailer came out. Looks promising. Didn't really see any gameplay. Can't really talk much about it, other than that. Speculate away. People who are who are much crazier than us, and just want to be like, this thing right here at second 37 at frame 4632. This little detail at the corner of the screen at the bottom right. This means that something happened.
The funny thing from the announcement was that they said it's going to go into other media as well. And, you know, this is with George R. R. Martin, and somebody was like, yeah, he's going to finish these novels before he finishes Game of Thrones. So I guess if you never finish, then you've always got work to do. I don't know. I'm not an author, so I don't know how that works.
I mean, it's one of those things, right? It's like, I'm sure there are a lot of people who wanted to finish Game of Thrones. On the other hand, there's this stuff with Elden Ring, which there are also an equal amount of people super excited for as well. On the other hand, Elden Ring, or Dark Souls and Game of Thrones both carry some inspiration from Berserk, and unfortunately, Mira passed away.
Oh, really?
A couple
Oh,
weeks
yeah,
ago.
I knew that.
Yeah, and that's gotten people nervous now. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just kind of like, I'm not sure what Martin's doing, but he's got to finish one of these things. He's got to finish one of these products or something, or people are probably going to riot again, unfortunately. I can't say, I can't really say I'm for it, but it is going to happen. That's really about it.
One thing I'll say about this is I was thinking about why I was not very impressed with like what I've seen so far. And one aspect I think is that it's very hard for me in my old age to get hyped about new IPs. Like if I hear about a new game and some series I like, then I'm like, oh yeah, maybe this will be good. But this is one where they threw enough star power at it that it's like, okay, people are paying attention to this just on the pedigree of the people involved, even if it is a new IP.
Yeah, and I mean, like, From Software is kind of a hot name now, given the vast success of Dark Souls and the just like its influence that's infiltrated like the entire like video game spectrum, really. uh it's just one of those things, like, people are looking forward to it and just kind of going like, is this gonna be the next big thing from Software? Meanwhile, me with my galaxy brain going like, when's the next front mission, or Metal Wolf Chaos 2? This time it's the Prime Minister of France or something. I don't know. Other than that, I guess I'll just mention it here just because it got announced today. But Among Us is going to be updated to have 15 players, a max of 15 players per game now.
So you can have that many more people quit when you try to boot up a game?
Yeah. Or get mad when they can't find the 3 imposters instead. But And that's the Summer Game Fest. So moving on to today, the Xbox and Bethesda event. I guess it is E3 related, but um, or rather, it was tied to E3, but it didn't really give that impression to me. Uh, Aside from the thumbnail that I clicked on to watch it. Uh, Other than that, oh wait, oh yeah, there was an Ubisoft thing as well, but to be honest, I didn't really see anything that I was interested in. So we'll just keep moving on. Sorry everyone in our writers chat who was excited about Ubisoft. Um, my bad. So we're just gonna move on to Xbox and Bethesda. I think this one was kind of interesting for me at least. Not because of Starfield. They didn't really show any gameplay as far as I know. Uh, Stalker getting a sequel was actually kind of surprising. Do you know anything about that game? About the original game, Derek?
I do not.
Okay, so just to give you a rundown real quick, although I haven't played it myself, um, Stalker, the first Stalker game was kind of like a predecessor to Metro 2033, where carries some influence from the Fallout game, or Fallout game, Fallout series, uh, where it's set in a dystopian setting, following. I don't really know it accurately off the top of my head. Following nuclear fallout in Russia, or no, what am I saying? It's right there, Chernobyl. Um, and it was kind of one of those interesting things where there was like a heavy focus on survival. Resources were limited and stuff like that. I think it had like an interesting like currency system as well, which is where Metro 2033 like uh, developed on that and did it differently with like how bullets were currency in those games. Um, so that's pretty interesting. What else? There was also Contraband, which just going off of the trailer, they didn't show any gameplay. Most of these weren't really gameplay, had any gameplay really shown. Um, Contraband is a new game by Avalanche, set in the 1970s, and seems to be like a multiplayer heist game. So that's pretty cool. Sea of Thieves gets Captain Jack. Next item. Battlefield 2042. Not much to say on that. 12 minutes, which I think, if I remember correctly, is the game is like that game where it was like top down and you're kind of just like trying to figure out um, a murder mystery. There was like a teaser trailer for it a few years back, but I forget exactly. Um, what was there anything that really caught your eye, Derek? I know there was really only Aiden Chronicle, which we'll get into in a bit, but
Well, I do appreciate every time Xbox is up there. They're like, these games are on Game Pass, like now. And if I played M-rated games, I would be jumping all over Yakuza Like a Dragon because that game got a lot of accolades among RPGers, and that's on Game Pass. So um, I would definitely want to check that out. So I was just reading about Aiden Chronicles, and so my understanding is that game Chronicles is coming out in 2023, but there's a new game coming out in 2022 to prep you for that. And Suikoden 2 is one of my favorite RPGs of all time. So I think what I realized a minute ago, I was looking at these like 2023, 2022. I kind of forgot it's 2021. In my head, it's still 2020. So I'm like, these are 2 to 3 years away. Why are you showing this stuff now?
Stop
Oh
living in the
yeah,
past. We're
it's
moving forward.
2021.
Yeah.
These are closer than I think they are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to those. It's kind of, I mean, they're coming as far as I can tell to every console. So, I mean, I guess Xbox wants to show everything off, but for a second, I thought, oh crap, is this an exclusive?
Yeah. I mean, I forgot as well that uh Aiden Chronicle was even a thing. I remember seeing the Kickstarter way back when. That was like back in 2017 apparently. So I
That's the problem with Kickstarter is when you actually get it, you don't want it anymore because you back it, and then 3 years later, you're like, crap, I forgot I paid for this. Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
The Outer Worlds 2 is also a pretty big announcement, right?
Yeah, pretty big. Kind of still like going in with their snarky attitude about it. Kind of awkward now that I think about it because the up um the expansion for Fallout 76 was announced at this conference as well. So it's kind of like ooh.
I'm amazed that game got an expansion. I mean, I haven't played any of them, but I just hear every day about how terrible Fallout 76 is.
uh yeah, yeah, I mean like the launch wasn't great and everything. I think for the most part I think for the most part like the majority of like the real disgraceful bugs that were happening were addressed for the most part. I mean, I don't really know. It's kind of like I don't really want to continue watching the continuous car wreck, if you know what I mean. So,
Yeah.
uh
You were talking earlier about Tales of Zillia and the Tales games, how you can tell it's always the same artist. The Aiden Chronicles footage, you can definitely tell that's whoever did Suikoden.
yeah. Oh no, yeah, for sure. I will say the trailer has definitely sold me on wanting to wait on that game. Because I liked the presentation of the game of the battle gameplay of just like these very like dynamic set pieces to each battle and everything. It's kind of like oh that's cool like everyone's positioned differently and stuff like that adds like a little zest to the turn-based battles and stuff.
And then 10 years from now, the remaster will take all that away.
Why you gotta do with me like that, man? That's not cool. Anyway, I'm gonna focus on happy stuff. I'm gonna continue to consume product. Psychonauts 2 finally having a release date, August 25th. A lot sooner than I was expecting, actually, which is great. Psychonauts 1 was one of those games where I was like, game's really weird, but I'm like, I was like oddly attracted to it playing through it. And I'm just kind of hoping like Tim Schafer managed to capture the magic again with this one. So
Also, I have some friends that are obsessed with Age of Empires 3, and so the fact that 4 is coming straight to Game Pass, okay, that's something where I actually might check that out. I don't know. I would probably wouldn't buy it, but I without playing it, but I might actually check that out on Game Pass.
yeah, yeah. It honestly it's kind of crazy that it's getting a sequel after all this time too. So I mean like I've said before, I'm not really big on RTSs, but I am happy that like such like a veteran legacy is like coming back.
Yeah, so that game's 15 years old, and like Neo's getting the sequel this summer, or The World Ends with You is getting the sequel after 12, 13 years.
Mhm.
Are we running out of ideas? Is that why we're making sequels to 13, 15, 20-year-old games?
Uh, well, I think in this case it's kind of different because um, we're kind of like going back, or at least with video games, it's like we've kind of hit that point with how like movies have movies for sequels or sequels of movies have happened, but I feel like this is a lot more interesting now. Like, um, you know, trying to see like what new things they're gonna add to Age of Empires 4, what they're doing differently for Neo, The World Ends with You.
I also think we're at a place technologically where, from like ever since we went to HD with PS3,
Mm-hmm.
so like PS3, PS4, PS5, like we're kind of out of places to go technologically other than bigger and better. Like it's not to move from 2D to 3D, right? I mean, maybe VR is bigger than I think it is, but like I think we're at the point where we're just iterating because we haven't thought of a new way to like really make the technology like change in a drastic way. I could be wrong, but
Well, I mean, you say that, but considering that there are games on console that still can't get a consistent 60 frames per
well,
second.
sure. You're right. So that's what I'm saying is really right now, like it's about improving, like and iterating, not about
Yeah.
like new
I I mean
new concepts.
I mean like fidelity is one thing, but I think image quality um and consistent performance is a lot more important than like making sure, man, look how realistic all the needles on this cactus are.
Sure, I
And I'm
agree.
just like, yeah, that's great, but I can't appreciate it when I see a tumbleweed JPEGing its way across the desert floor. Uh anyway, um Slime Rancher 2 getting announced. That's really great. I have Slime Rancher. I have the original Slime Rancher. That game was like surprisingly pleasant. Essentially like a farm a farming simulator type of game. Only with slimes. With some exploration gameplay as well, which is pretty interesting. You might actually want to check that out
It
with your
looks pretty
daughter.
cute, but yeah, but among my many restrictions on games, I get motion sick from first person.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Well, that's unfortunate. But
I probably have the most narrow restrictions on what games I play out of anybody on staff.
mm, uh, Shredders took the award for most nonplussed trailer, despite it like actually looking pretty competent. Honestly, like pretty good fidelity. Seems to essentially be like Skate 3, but with snowboarding. Looks pretty promising, but we'll have to see. Um, Release date for Diablo 2 for September. Uh, don't hold your breath on that. I'm sure something will happen. Uh, and then there was also Atomic Heart, which looked pretty interesting. Seems to be like a reality take of um Soviet Union Russia. Um, pretty like funky looking sci-fi take for a game set in Russia, but looks interesting enough. Kind of like one of the few that I'm honestly interested in, and actually, um, as well as this other one, Replaced, which is it actually focuses on pixel art, which was interesting to see as like a front as like a big frontliner for this conference, and is also like a cinematic action platformer. So in the same vein as like the first Prince of Persia, what was that other one? 20th Century, Flashback, those types of games. Wait, 20th Century? Or oh no, I meant Another World. Oh my goodness, I'm terribly sorry. uh, Grounded's getting an update. The Among Us update. Eoden Chronicle 100 Heroes. Um, looks pretty good. Again, made by the creators of the first and second Suikoden. So I'm pretty interested as well.
Wait, did Suikoden change creators after 345 after 2, and is that why 345 sucks so much? I'll have to look into
Uh,
that.
I mean, I liked Suikoden 5. I know that game that isn't really held in high regard. I think Suikoden 3 uh, was held in pretty high regard though. 4 4 if I remember correctly is the one that like a lot of people agree was pretty weak in comparison to the others.
Okay, but Mirayama is the director of the creator of the series, the first two, and he left before Suikoden 3, is
Hmm.
what I just read. That, man, okay, when I was of age playing these games, I didn't look, I mean, the internet barely existed. Wikipedia did not exist. I had no idea. That makes so much more sense. Okay. This podcast has led to me clarifying a lot of my JRPG history that I didn't understand.
I mean that's good
Okay.
because that means you there's still more to learn, right?
And Mirayama is one of the ones on the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a happy man. Finally, I'm hyped about something. It took a while.
Yay!
We're there.
Yay!
We're there.
Consume product, consume product, consume product.
Honestly, if I had been aware, I probably would have kickstarted this, but I wasn't aware of it at the time.
Yeah, I would have. Hey, sorry about that. My internet just died, and unfortunately, I won't be able to relive Derek's amazing flight sim joke. Get down, Kevin Hart. There's a new master in town. Anyway, uh,
Can you crash in Flight Simulator? And can you crash as bad as that did?
uh, yeah, I think so. As bad as this joke is right now. Or,
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
uh, I,
And burn.
I mean, hopefully it's not as cringeworthy.
Honestly, the
Um,
delay on you figuring that out was pretty good. All right, you just want to go into Square Enix? We were pretty much done with Microsoft, right?
yeah,
To
pretty much.
summarize my view of Microsoft, I'm excited for 2 years from now when Ayuden Chronicles comes out. That's about it.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, do you mind if I take the lead on Square Enix? I got opinions.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm on. I'm gonna list these in order and give my opinions. I'm taking over the podcast. That way, if Sam dies, well, no, he's recording. That won't work. All right, here we go. Okay, so most of it at the beginning was about Guardians of the Galaxy. They spent forever on this game. Here's my current take on this. Guardians of the Galaxy is not necessarily my favorite Marvel characters, but that was the movie. Like we watched the Avengers out of context without watching the other ones, and I was like, "This is stupid. Why do people like this?" And then years later, my sister-in-law who likes Marvel, we watched Guardians of the Galaxy, and I was like, "Okay, this is actually kind of good." So that was the movie that convinced me to go watch the MCU. So we what I do know is that good Marvel games are possible because Spider-Man exists. I also know that bad Marvel games are possible because Avengers exists.
Oh,
But those are
whoa, man! Don't say that too loud.
my bad. But those are two different developers. Now we got a third developer. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm gonna wait for reviews. If this game is good, I kind of like this style of game. It's third person, so I'm not gonna get sick. Um, if it turns out to be like Spider-Man level really good, I might check it out. I do wish you could play as more than Star Lord. I realize that would be complicated, but being able to play as the other characters would be
Well,
nice.
I think the problem is, and I was actually gonna mention this. Uh, the studio that made the Avengers game by Square Enix is the same studio that's going to be working on this.
I thought
So,
that was Crystal Dynamics, and this is Eidos Montreal.
oh,
Oh,
is
this
it?
is the same thing. Yeah, this is
Oh,
Eidos
okay,
Montreal.
okay. Never mind.
Yeah,
Okay, there. Then there's hope. Then there's
yeah.
hope.
So I mean, Avengers is now working on another expansion for Avengers, trying to save that game. But so that's the other thing too is like people feel like live service games have to be like saved, and like there's even a category for Game Awards. Then we had Sky won the like best improved or whatever.
Yeah.
My impression of this was that this is very much like a single player campaign. You buy it, you play it, you're done. Maybe there's DLC, but like none of this updates and continual. It's not a live service game. That's why I'm actually interested in it. At least that was my understanding from what I watched.
Well, it's not. It's just that it has things that you expect from a live service game, uh, and it has multi, or well, um, the Avengers has multiplayer, except it didn't quite work. So I'm kind of confused if Square Enix actually wants it to be a live service game or not. I think they do. Citation needed. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's
I think the problem is that if I guessed, if I was going to look at Square Enix's financial reports,
mm-hmm.
I think for probably the past 6 or 7 years, like most of their income has been Final Fantasy 14. I'm not, I can't like say that definitively, but I'm guessing because that really did well. And so
Yes,
I think
actually.
they're just trying to figure out how can we get people to subscribe or continually like check in on other games. And so I think they're kind of stuck in that. They're also just a company that ever since I don't know if they had a change in precedent. This might be my JRPG history again. You have to help me with, but ever since I don't know, maybe since when mobile games became a thing, they have just ported and reprinted and just done the same crap over and over since like Final Fantasy X. Like they're the Capcom level milk everything over and over and over and over and over and over, including to my next point. Okay, Final Fantasy 1 through 6. There's a very vague announcement about the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, and actually, I'm more confused because the site I'm looking at, and they're talking about the announcements, they made it sound like they think this is one release that's going to have all 6 games in it. I thought we were getting separate remasters of all 6 games. But also, it's only coming out to PC and mobile, which makes no sense. I feel like um, the Switch is an obvious place to put these games, and Switch gets mobile ports all the time. So I guess I'll wait to see if it comes out on Switch.
I
But
think I think what's gonna be is that's really bad then. Because what that sounds like to me is like I think what's gonna be is like there's gonna be like an application you can get, and then you go into that application, and then buy like well I bought Final Fantasy 1, now I want Final Fantasy 3, and then you have to buy those separately. I think is what's
well,
going to happen.
now you're just making me unnecessarily sad. But one thing I
I'm
thought was
sorry.
interesting, I realized that for this they're showing off stuff that's like ready for America, and the Dragon Quest thing was in Japan. Because just like a week ago there was a Dragon Quest 35th celebration, and man, that was hype. They announced Dragon Quest 12. They announced Dragon Quest 10 offline, which might actually come over to America since it's doesn't require servers.
I really hope so.
Um, they announced Dragon Quest 3 HD, which I would be way more hyped about, except I just beat that game last Christmas. But if they had said, "Hey, Final Fantasy 1 through 6 are getting 2D HD remakes," that would have been hype. But instead, and the other thing about this if you watch the trailer for the Pixel Remaster Collection, my impression is that the pixels shown are the pixels of the original games. So I don't think there was a date given for this. I don't know. This was very disappointing. Okay, then
Yeah.
the next big thing was Final Fantasy Origin, and I'm very torn how I feel about this. So basically, they announced I can't tell if it's a prequel or if it's a remake of Final Fantasy One, but it's basically a Souls-like, very dark action game, blow up bad guys. Um, and Team Ninja's making this, and it basically looks. It's supposed to be basically an action version of Final Fantasy One or prequel to it. I don't really like that style of gameplay that much. I'd rather. I mean, I realize Final Fantasy has delved into other genres, and really even the mainline games have transitioned a lot and how they get played. So that's not a big deal. But I guess my first question that maybe I can answer to myself. My first question was, why would you pick Final Fantasy One to of all the Final Fantasies that you could do this with? But it kind of makes sense if you're gonna make a game that really the focus is on blowing up bad guys and on combat and not really on story. Then why not pick the game with no story? So I guess that makes sense. But I'll wait for reviews to get this on sale.
Yeah.
I'm not like hype about this. Final Fantasy 16 I'll probably buy the first day. This I'll wait on. Okay, I think the only other big thing, which I'll let you talk about because you're the Platinum Games guru, is Babylon's Fall, which I have no interest in, but maybe you do.
Yeah. we finally get some news on Babylon's Fall. And it's a live service game. I don't know how to feel
Boo.
about that. I mean,
Is
like,
this their first?
yes, it is. I think technically Scalebound was supposed to be the first one, but we know what happened with that, and it's a little too awkward now, and makes me sad thinking about it. So back to Babylon's Fall. Uh, I don't know. It seems interesting. Like I have no doubts that the combat will definitely carry a good portion of that game whenever it comes out. Um, I'm more at this point. I'm more kind of interested in what the model is going to be because I'm not sure what exactly they're going to do because Square Enix still hasn't really done a live service game aside from Final Fantasy 14. Uh,
Oh,
oh,
Avengers, right?
oh, and yeah, and Avengers. But
So Final Fantasy 14.
I, yeah, like I kind of hope whatever it is, it's closer to what Final Fantasy 14 is like, which would essentially mean just like either a season pass where you get expansions, which would be great. Um, I think expansion DLC is a lot more promising um, and would definitely help when it comes to like scaling up a game uh, to like add more content to it and sort of like elongate the service cycle, I suppose. If we really going to want to get technical about it. If this is really boring, I apologize, but this is really the only interesting aspect to really talk about with this game. Yeah, I mean like if you want me to talk about the combat mechanics, I would have to look through that trailer again. Which I suppose we could do now, but we're running
Well,
close on time, so
let's put it this way. So to me, I think I'm going to put words in your mouth, and you tell me if they're the right words. The issue, it's like most game live service games. I can't really think. I mean, some are successful, like Final Fantasy 14 or Fortnite or something, but I can't think of a live service game that you or I is like, hey, I am happy that this game is live service, and I have continuously went back to this game because I'm happy that it's presented this way. Do you have one? Can you think of one? That's what I thought. But
Warframe. Warframe's
I
the
didn't even
only
know
one.
I didn't even know you played that game.
Yeah. It next to next to Borderlands 2, it's the second game I've sunk the most hours in on Steam.
Okay. So, but on average, generally not a model that at least I'm a fan of. But on the other hand, I think Platinum Games has generated a lot of trust.
Mhm.
Like you've been pretty continually impressed with them. So it's like, do you take the approach of like, okay, if anybody's gonna be able to pull it off, it's them, or is it like, you stab me in the back, Platinum Games, why are you doing this?
Well, that's the thing is like when it comes to a live service game, there's really so many ways this could be taken because it could be handled by the studio solely, it could be handled by the publisher solely, it could be a collaboration of both to make sure it doesn't like it doesn't hamper the gameplay too much. It's really difficult, and it's also because like Platinum Games hasn't really done a live service game before. Like anything that comes really close is Anarchy Reigns back on the 360, but that was more like it just had multiplayer as an arena fighter, and that was pretty much it. Um, and unfortunately for that game, uh, they didn't really get that much support past its launch, so their servers didn't even last that long either. I don't think they even survived the entire year whenever that game came out, unfortunately. So it's really difficult to say, and because they didn't really go into detail about what exactly is going to be how the live service part of the game is really going to work. I think this is a case where it's like more information is needed, and we're just gonna have to wait and see if they give any more information about this later on.
That's how I feel about Origin.
Yeah, pretty much.
I guess technically it's called Stranger of Paradise, but
Yeah, Stranger of Paradise. Yet he's wearing a T-shirt, so I don't know what's so strange about that. But uh, yeah, yeah, that's all I can really say, honestly. And I think that'll wrap us up.
well, real quick, you got any hopes for Nintendo or anything else coming up? I can give mine.
Um, I know whatever it's gonna be. The Smash reveal is gonna piss off everyone on Twitter, and I'm just gonna have a fun time, looking through all that.
I don't care about Smash anymore.
It's
I
a,
don't. I mean, I don't
it's gonna be a good
play it.
Tuesday morning for me, is all I'm saying. So, uh,
I am looking forward to. I assume Bandai Namco is going to give a little more information about Tales of Arise. It's already. I mean, it's already announced for September, so that's ready to show off. I don't know if I expect anything else from them. Scarlet Nexus is coming soon. That looks okay. From Nintendo, I want to hear more about Breath of the Wild 2. I want them to announce Xenoblade Chronicles X port for the Switch because it's the only thing they haven't ported that I'm waiting on.
yeah, that's
Everything
true.
has been ported. Everything has been ported
No, not
except that
true.
game.
Not true.
What? Name
There's
one.
still quite a few.
Name worth porting.
Zach and
We look.
Wiki. There's a few Japanese games on the Wii that haven't gotten updated yet, or received
Uh,
a port.
where they did they come out in America on the Wii U?
No,
Okay, well
I
then
I
that's
know that
okay.
I know that for a fact. Like for example, Zack and Wiki definitely did not come to the Wii U.
Of the American the games that came to America on the Wii U and haven't been ported to the Switch, Xenoblade Chronicles X is pretty much the only thing left. Well,
I mean,
maybe I could see the Zelda HD remasters getting ported over. Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, and I would play Wind Waker HD
I
if
don't
they
know if
ported
they
that.
will though. That's the thing.
But it seems so unless they really heavily use the gamepad, it seems like if they can redo Skyward Sword, come on.
But that's the thing. They've always done that before though. Like every game that they planned on having on the current console, they then push it to the next console instead. Uh,
That's true. Okay, well I'll play it safe. I want to hear more about. I don't need a date. I just want to hear more about Breath of the Wild 2. I want to hear more about Tales of Arise.
yeah,
So some games I'm looking forward to that I already know are announced, and then I can be pleasantly surprised by everything else.
yeah. I'm
I
also
think
kind of
we will.
hoping. Oh, go ahead.
I'll just make a prediction that'll make people mad. We will not. They won't even mention Metroid Prime 4 at this direct.
Oh no way, no. Uh, uh, I will say this right now. Unless somehow miraculously I'm wrong, there's no way they're going to be announcing Metroid Prime. They're talking about Metroid Prime 4. There's no way they're going to be talking about Bayonetta 3. Um, Whatever the Smash character is, it is going to piss you off. Deal with it. Let me think. Let
What
me think.
happened
Let
to
me
the
think. Let me think. Let me
enthusiasm?
think. Let me think. There's one more. There's one more. Don't hold your promises for news on Shin Megami Tensei 5. I want as much as some of you guys do. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Oh, they did announce that though. And that's Switch exclusive, right?
Currently, yeah,
Oh,
but there's been no other news since then.
okay. Bandai Namco is gonna announce Dark Souls 4.
Uh, Sub Zero from Mortal Kombat is gonna be the next Smash character. I'm stealing that from Maximilian, dude. I don't care. Okay,
I think that's actually a pretty good prediction.
okay. Let me give another really dumb one then. Um, um, um.
That one wasn't dumb enough. It was too good.
I don't want to do Master Chief because everyone's been saying that. Doom Guy as well, not Goku, uh, not Shantae. That'd be
Does
pretty
the
wild,
character
but I don't think that's gonna happen.
the character has to originate in a video game, right? It can't be like a IP that became a video game and then.
Well, the problem is like the limiters are off ever since Cloud was first announced for the previous Smash game.
Oh, because he didn't originate on a Nintendo.
Yeah, because it's specifically Final Fantasy VII Cloud.
But okay, so maybe it doesn't have to originate on Nintendo, but it has to be at a video game character first, right? Not like you can't have Iron Man, even though he's been in a video game because he didn't start as a video game character.
Yeah. Let me think. It's got to be something really good that we can end the podcast on and get people super butthurt, and then they complain in the comments.
Have they mined everything they can mine from their own history? There's got to be something else that they haven't done.
I mean, there were some things, but I think those were already proved to be, those were already debunked actually. So,
okay, here's a wild positive one. That they announce more details of Metroid Prime 4. They don't give a date, but the new suit Samus or whatever for Metroid Prime 4, like how they have Zero Suit Samus, they're gonna put her in Smash before the game even comes out, and then people can theorize about Prime 4 based on playing the character in Smash.
Interesting.
That's my wild guess.
The PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale move, you say?
Oh, really? I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, Dante from DMC Devil May Cry, the game developed by a Ninja Theory, and Raiden from Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance were added to that game to promote their games, which hadn't come out yet.
Well, there you go. It's not that weird of an idea.
Unfortunately, it pissed off everyone who was just like, "Why not Classic Dante? Why not?"
And that
Classic
was our
Raiden.
goal. So mission accomplished.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. I'm done. I'm calling it.
I think no wait, hang on. I think I gotta give one. Oh come on. I can think of something. I know I can. I just gotta dig deep enough. You know what? You know what would be really awesome?
What?
Vic Viper from Gradius.
I have no idea what you just said.
Just have you heard of Gradius?
No.
Oh.
Who invited me to a video game podcast?
Have you heard of any shoot 'em up at all?
I played Ikaruga. Oh wait, you don't mean space shooters? You mean what do you mean?
Yeah.
How am I shooting?
Yeah, something like that.
Like bullet hell kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Ikaruga. That's about it.
There we go. The ship from Ikaruga.
It would be funny if it was like not even a humanoid. It was just like.
That's what I want. I'm sick of all these beta opinions of people saying I want human characters in my fighting game. Give me weirdos. That's what I want. Give me like Amaterasu from Okami or something. That's not gonna happen. I know it's not. But yeah, no, that's my crazy pick. Ikaruga. And on that note, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
See ya.